Hello and welcome to the Embodied Shakti Summit. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Monica with me here today. Thank you so much, Monica, for joining us. And I would love for you to introduce yourself and share about your work and what Embodied Shakti means to you.
Thank you, Sama, for the invitation, and hello to everyone watching. Greetings to you. My name is Monica Larrea de Arellano, and I'm the daughter of Ruperto Larrea and Josefina Maria Larrea. And I am an Indigenous midwife and also someone who's just been on my own journey of rediscovering, remembering ancestral ways of being in the world. And I really appreciate this invitation to participate with you. To be honest with you, I really love the sound of embodied Shakti. And also, I don't know a lot about Shakti in general, to be really honest. And so when I was checking out the summit page and learning a little bit more from what you were sharing, I was really in gratitude to be participating with you because in some ways they're just universal concepts, right? And so what it means to me really is that we have this opportunity within ourselves to connect with something greater and to facilitate healing for ourselves and potentially be a gift of healing for others, depending on who we are in the world. And so from that opportunity to pray and meditate on what I would have to offer today on this theme, the concepts that really stuck out for me were these concepts of remembering and of responsibility. And so what I'd like to offer, my intention for today, is to share what I've been able to acquire on my own spiritual walk and journey around these concepts and what my ancestors have shared with me. So I also want to be really, really transparent because I know that there's unfortunately a lot of spiritual abuse as well that takes place out in the world, unfortunately. And so I just want to be really clear that I'm just another human being like everyone else who's listening. We all have a gift. We all have a talent. I have been on my own journey of remembering. I was not raised in my ancestral traditions because of colonization and so on. So I had to embark on that journey of rediscovery and be really intentional. Have a lot of intention and spiritual connection to reclaim and recover and remember. So this is also why it feels really near and dear to my heart. So I just want to put that out there that, you know, I was raised latchkey kid in the city on commodities and all of that good stuff. I was not like raised in a, you know, teepee or teocalli or any of these things. I'm just an indigenous person trying to remember. And also that my intention really is to share as much as I can for the benefit of all life. And so I've also asked permission in the ceremonial and ancestral way to share what I am sharing today. So Sama, thank you for your offering of tobacco for that. And I prayed with that tobacco to be able to offer this today.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So where I want to begin is how do we remember, right? Because we maybe have had a calling to something, maybe we feel attracted, the energy, the vibration attraction to something. And in some ways I feel like we have a tendency to kind of seek out complexity in a way because many of us are trying to remember now as adults, right? How maybe to do things in a really ancestral way or traditional way or more natural or holistic way. And it's really beautiful, all of the things that are available to us. We have books, we have the internet, we have like so many amazing things that we can access. And yet one of the things that I feel really called to talk about and share about is that, you know, although that can be really beautiful and some people can really take on that level of complexity, that in some ways it also creates some further disconnect. And so one of the things that our ancestors anywhere around the world really had a clear understanding of was the original technologies, right? So the original technologies of water, earth, fire, and wind, right? And so there is a beauty and even an excitement to learning some really technical things, you know, like when we learn about quantum physics and infinite possibility, right? And we learn about auras and chakras, and it's like really like this, the spiritual science of it is really complex, you know, and it can be magical. And so I don't want to tell anyone or discourage them that they shouldn't do that, but it's almost like when we're wanting to grow in our spiritual development, if we don't really have a relationship to the original technologies, there can be a disconnect between the information that we're receiving and how we integrate it into our lives as just a human being, right? Mm-hmm. And we see this over and over again because, you know, we can get things in theory. We're intelligent beings and we get them in theory. And even if we feel it and it makes us have some kind of response emotionally to it, often we're like, wow, I've really been doing this, but my life hasn't really changed. Like, I don't know how to like actually do the thing, you know? And so I really want to just encourage us to remember those original technologies. Okay. And the reason is because they all are part of us, and they all help us to integrate everything else that we're going to be receiving, because they're also a part of everything else, right? So there are opportunity, the way in which we communicate with everything else that exists, right? So if we have a basic relationship with water, you know, water is the universal memory, right? So water is the universal memory. So if we build a relationship with water, then we have a deeper connection to memory, right? We can have a deeper connection to that. You know, the same thing with like wind, you know, because when we think about it, we're like, oh, it's just windy outside, or, you know, but the way that our ancestors understood these technologies, it was so much deeper than that. It was like, yes, it's physically like it's windy, but what is it bringing? What is it taking away? You know, where is that wind in you? Like, that's breath, you know, and that breath not only has that wind energy in it, but it also has the water in it because it's moisture, and it also has the fire in it because it's warm, right? So just like being able to understand and connect to the original technologies is a really, really good place to start. Because I feel like also too, I've participated in some of these amazing summits like the one that you're offering, and, you know, the level of wisdom that is collected and the level of wisdom that's shared. And I think about like every person being at a different point in their journey, where some folks are hearing some of this for the very first time. And others are like, you know, please, like, take me to the next, you know, I'm ready to take 10 steps forward because I've done all of that, right? So how do we in some way offer an opportunity for all of us to work on getting on the same page collectively, right? So that we can collectively grow and we can collectively share information. So that just came really strongly when I prayed with that tobacco, that there really is this invitation on the part of those who came before us to really connect with those original technologies.
Beautiful. You know, it's so interesting that you started out by saying you didn't know a whole lot about embodied Shakti or about Shakti particularly. And then you're just saying what the foundation of embodiment and embodiment of spirit really is, which is connecting to these elemental technologies of being in a body, of being alive, of being connected with the spirit of life, the spirit of ourselves, and the spirit of all of life, which at the elemental root is these technologies that you're speaking of, the water, the fire, the earth, and the air, and the wind. And so I'm inspired to share a little bit about how I connect with these elements, and I would love to hear your journey of remembering how to connect with these elemental technologies for you, and how those affected your embodiment process. So for me, for example, and I feel that distinction you're making between practices that don't end up translating into change in your life or healing in all aspects of your life, because I had that for years, where I could intellectually understand, and I could even, as I got into wanting practices that were more integrated into my life, as I was seeking to find ways to actually create change in my life more potently than the intellectual understanding allowed. So I was seeking ways to have it be more real, right? And have it make more change in my life, because I was repeating the same patterns that I grew up with that were unsatisfactory. And so I started learning breath practices, like in yoga, right? I mean, the yogis teach yoga practices, breath practices that are designed to sort of rewire your system. And that's one of the beauties of the breath. And so learning how my body was restricting my breath because of the tensions, emotional tensions, and spiritual belief systems, and, you know, where things had not become fully connected or activated in me because of the challenges of my upbringing and the lack of information or initiation into anything that allowed that to develop. Was, you know, one of my first connections with that was through the breath. And through spending time in nature, spending time at natural bodies of water, and feeling what it felt like to immerse myself in that water and to have a relationship with this living planet, and then earth, as, you know, through gardening, through getting in the soil, through putting the clay on my body, through creating clay sculptures, bowls, vessels to hold things in, you know, playing with it in all sorts of ways. My mom used to tell me, I would come home, she didn't understand how I got mud in my ears that she had to clean out. But, you know, I'm very much an earth mud playing person, but also the earth, the mud of our body and our bones, and how that moves, and creating, you know, having a relationship, a vital, respectful, honoring relationship with all of that. And then a fire, I mean, the passion, the fierceness in our being, the fire of our spirit, our inspiration, our creative fire, but also, and that can happen just with the relationship with actual fire. You know, I lived in a home where it was heated by a wood stove for many, many years, and that is a meditation in and of itself, providing heat through fire, you know, through the winter, and like that. And just that basic of, you know, all the understandings and all of the body movements and all of that is such an initiation into these basic technologies. And so I'd love to hear about your journey with exploring this in your remembering process as well.
So in my remembering, I've been very lucky that I have met people and had been given the opportunity to participate in my ancestral way of praying, so that I've been able to go to ceremony. I've been able to have access to people who could share information with me about how our ancestors connected with these technologies. And so you know, as far as, like, for example, water, a lot of times in my spiritual community, we say, you know, you can even heal with a glass of water, is what we say, you know, because water is so sacred. Like, water in so many ways is almost the physical embodiment of the creator, you know, because it's so, like, sustaining, right? And within all things. And so, so with water, one of the things that we do is we literally pray with water. We make offerings of water. We, it is also really beautiful to go to bodies of water, like you mentioned, and be with the water, and to spend time in water. And so one of the recommendations that I would have is, it's just like you were talking about, tending to that hearth in your home. When you actually have to like warm yourself through fire, you have a totally different respect and love for that fire and that meditation that kind of naturally comes with it. There's also like, because of the fact that our modern lives have separated us in so many ways from those technologies, they've like made them convenient. And, this isn't about whether that's good or bad. It's just that it is, right? And so, we don't even really know what it is anymore to actually like commune with water in a way where we like really intentionally bathe ourselves, like really have this communion with water. And I live in a way off grid and all of that. And so I live in this way where I bathe myself. Like the water's not just coming at me. Most of us are like, oh, we got to run in the shower and get out of the shower. And that's okay. Like water has a function, right? It's very cleansing. And so we can go in there and like clean our bodies and all of that, but it's not a ceremonial thing anymore. It's not the same as when you would go to the river and thank the river and get in that body of water, or, whatever water was available, right, to our tribal communities. It's like, now it's just like we turn on, we run in, we run out, and the water's not coming into the systems the way that water naturally flows. And so it's like really different to actually take a bowl of water and pour it over yourself, and to like really have this ceremony with it. And so that's one of the recommendations that I would have, is that in trying to remember and reconnect with these technologies, that actually like physically doing these practices can be very helpful. So even if you have a tub or whatever, you have a full setup in your house, but you can still warm water and put it in a vessel and bathe yourself with it, right? Like that is still, and I know that you offer on your website as well, like information about vaginal steams and all these kinds of, so there's also like the healing power of like steam, and for, in particular, people with vaginas, like in using this ceremonial technology to receive plant medicine through this other embodiment of water, which is, it has its own ability to transform, and then the steam is now another opportunity, right?
And then that's a combination of the elements of all the elements, really, the steam. I'm glad you brought that up, because the herbal steaming really is a ceremony of welcoming the gifts of all of these elemental technologies, because we need the fire to heat that water to steaming. We need the earth that grows those plants and puts its nutrients into those plants specifically in there. And then we need the air to allow the steam that carries the steam upward. The relationship between the water and the air and the fire and the earth all create this steaming thing. So steaming is like a ceremony that connects us with all of those technologies all at once, it seems. And many do have a combination of like,
it's all connected, right? It's all
right. I do
to be linear with these things, because they're not linear by nature, right?
No, right.
And so I think that when you bring that up, it's like it's so important for us, because this is like, we may see it as just like this simple thing, but it really is a technology. It's like, you don't need a machine, quote unquote, to extract this from that plant. It's like there is this very ancestral, original way, technologies of how we can receive healing without it having to have complexity. So there's something also about how we've been separated from our nature, that we begin to believe that it has to be really complex, right? In order for it to be technology, or to be effective, or to be scientific, or to be whatever. And ancestral technology is actually not in any way in conflict with science or modern or, these things. It's just that we've made things really, really complex, and we need to, we have an opportunity to remember, right? The original instructions, which are so simple as putting these plants into this hot water and allowing that technology to bring us that gift, right? And so when we're also thinking about earth, absolutely, like communing with the earth in a way where you put your hands in, absolutely. Like we're all, almost if you watch any child, it's like they love it. It's like our original instruction to commune with our Holy Mother is just innate. And then we start to lose that, right? Because it's not acceptable to have dirt in your ears by a certain age, right? And for whatever reason. And so, that's one way. And then also the other way is actually, to eat the living green. Like you're saying, like these plants, they take up that essence, that vibration of our Holy Mother, her gifts, what she has to give us in terms of our nutrition. And in order for us to receive that, we take her in, we take in that gift, and we nourish ourselves with it. So I think a lot of that too is like we've separated ourselves, and we also get I feel like, again, the complexity, right? Like the superfoods and the acai and the latest thing, and it's great. Like, and I'm in no way trying to say don't do those things or whatever, but it's really simple. It's like herbal teas, and eat your vegetables. Like all these things, they're not highly studied, whatever. Like you can go into all of that, but really it's like, are you taking that in? Are you taking in the gift of our Holy Mother Earth? Do you actually put your feet ever on her to actually feel and receive and be anchored and grounded in that vibration? So, communing with her is as simple as taking your shoes off and standing there and being willing to receive that energy through your body. And as simple as saying, thank you for the salad I just made, and I'm going to take you in, and I'm going to like acknowledge all the medicine that's in this, and we do sometimes worry about things like, we can get so complicated and heady, and all these things are important too. I get that. But like, sometimes we're like, well, is that non-GMO? And is that this? And is that that? And da, da, da. And then we forget because they've conditioned us to forget that anything can be healed through intention and vibration, right? So that, yes, if you can buy high vibration foods, do that. If you have it within your personal economy to do that. And if that's not possible, then raise the vibration of the food that you have by praying over it, right? Now there's people coming out with studies that are like, oh, prayer is good for you, and sage actually does kill bacteria and cleanse the room, So I feel like they're always catching up to our ancestors, and that's okay. And I just want to like help us remember that we can also heal, and we can do all of those things through intention and vibration. And so if we set that intention with our food and we raise that vibration, that's what we can receive. So we don't have to always be fearful either about those things. And it's really more about saying, please infuse this food with its original instruction, right? So I think that's also one of the themes that we talk about a lot is original instruction. What is the original instruction? Like, what is the original instruction of our body, of our organ systems, of our Holy Mother Earth, and like working with all of these elements in a way that is really supporting those original instructions. Because when we start to deviate from those original instructions, that's where we end up having a hard time, right? Or giving ourselves a hard time. Yeah. And so with fire, it's like how many of our ancestral peoples, it's like they got up first thing, they greeted the sun. It's like just having a relationship with the sun, and now we hear about all this like vitamin D deficiency and depression from vitamin D deficiency. I mean, there's a lot of causes for depression, so I don't want to simplify it and say just get enough sunshine, but it's a thing, we don't take it in through our eyes anymore. And we have ancestral cultures that still do sun dance, and they don't lose their eyesight. They don't get skin cancer, communing with the sun. There's a lot of stuff going on there that we're not going to get into right now, but what I want to say is like, that's not bad for you, you know, if done in a, with intention and done in a ceremonial way, right? So communing with the sun, greeting the sun in the morning, that is like one way to start making a relationship with fire, because that's like the big fire in the sky, right? Like keeping us alive, like keeping us warm and helping the plants grow and doing all that. And that's just a really, really simple thing that can be done. And with wind also, you know, movement, right? So it's like, if we don't move, that's bad for us, you know, but also like if we move, like being conscious in our movement and embodying that element is very medicinal for us as well, right? So when you look at all of these things, it's like these are all what make up the world that we live in, and they make up what we are and why we exist and how we exist. And so when we acknowledge that we are this sacred technology and that we can connect with that sacred technology, it helps us to remember many other things, because once you make that connection, all of those things will begin to integrate themselves into your everyday life. And then you can use that as the foundation for which you build all of your other. Then when you hear all this stuff about quantum physics and the field of infinite possibility and, you know, healing your body and doing, you're like, oh yeah. Like I have a baseline that I get that. I get why my body can heal itself, because it's water, it's fire, it's wind, and it's earth, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah, they all work together to make beautiful medicine. I know, because when I make my steaming pot, there it is, all of those elements working together that created me in the first place. So just dancing with those elements, I become like creator. I honor creator for creating me with each of these elements dancing together. Is beautiful. And I really feel how real that is. And just looking back as you share on my journey, and that the elements, these elemental technologies were always the foundation of my journey. And I remember early on in my journey making decisions based on where I was going to live and how I was going to work, based on, will I have access to natural, clean water? Will I have access? Will I be able to breathe clean air? Will I be able to walk barefoot on the earth, on divine Mother Earth, in sacred Mother Earth, in a natural environment without cement or pavement, right? So, and will I have access, will I be able to be in the sun? And so I made decisions throughout my life about devotion to those elemental technologies, and having that be the basic building blocks for my life. And it's so ironic that most people never even consider those basic building blocks, and that the structures of our current society are so removed, have attempted to remove us from connection from those basic building blocks for whatever reasons, convenience, control, fear, what all the reasons that has happened that way. And so just getting back to those essential priorities has been a big shift for my life, that it was very obvious needed to happen. And so but it wasn't always easy. I mean, I have been willing in that devotion to just say, I'm getting out of here. I'm, giving up everything that I had built in this place, because it doesn't have the clean water, the clean air, the natural environment to walk barefoot in, and the place where I can be naked in the sun, right? I can't do those things here. So I'm going to go somewhere where I can, right? And I've had the freedom and the privilege to be able to do that and find places like that, but not everyone has that. And like, I live in an apartment right now, and my landlord lets me garden however I want. He doesn't have a fancy lawn with an irrigation system or anything there. not everyone lives someplace like that, right? I live in a town where there's a creek that runs through the town that I can go and walk by the creek. And I live near a hot springs where I work, which is sacred ground. And I go and do ceremonial bathing in the hot springs regularly. And I work with people who come here for that purpose as my work, right? So I've organized my life around these elemental priorities. And it's wonderful to hear you sharing about that and realize, yes, I'm with you on all of this. My ancestors have been guiding me with this way. But how can someone begin to reprioritize? And you shared a little bit about some of these ways: greeting the sun, and praying with the water, thanking the water, because the water is very malleable for our intentions too. So even if that water has come through the pipes and the processing plants and all of this in an urban environment, as soon as we say thank you to that water, it changes its structure immediately. And then it changes just saying thank you to anything, it changes our inner water to remember that vibration of gratitude. Right? And so
yeah, so simple things are, because the sun shines for all of us, right? So wherever you are, you can greet the sun. And if you're not even ready to be up with the sun yet, because that's just not your life or your reality, then greet him at the power times, the high point of the sun, and when the sun is going down in that golden light, like throughout the day, there are multiple opportunities, right? It's the ideal is like, we greet the sun because ancestrally for us, that was a ceremonial time that we were with the sun, and when the sun went down and when the sun was at its highest point. But at any time of the day, you can go out there and acknowledge that and say thank you. And also, like in the morning, it was like you pray with the sun and you had your water with you and you prayed with that water and the sun, and then you made the offering of water to the earth, and then you took a drink of that water. So these are really simple things that, if you can do that in the morning time, it's really beautiful. And also, like any other time, it's going to be just as sacred and beautiful, and an opportunity to start beginning, right? That process of remembering. Because even learning to pray, like sometimes, it's not that there's any wrong way to pray per se, but there is a learning curve to even being like, well, what do I even want to say, or how do I even speak to the creator, or how do I speak to the sacred, or how do I speak to this water? And it's like, we all start off praying very like children, like just very, and then we can really get to a place where we really get connected and really have a very strong intention, but they're all going to be good. Like we're just going to work our way up. So just saying that so that people don't feel like, oh, I have to pray like my friend over here who's like super connected and super the embodiment of all good things. And what do I know? I don't, and it's like, it's fine. It's like the point is to start, right? To begin and to take the journey, and whatever that's going to look like for you is good, and creating that connection with these sacred technologies so that you can start to receive not only that, because what happens is, one of the things that's happened to us is that, yes, we've been separated from these elements, but we've also been convinced that somehow we're like flawed and broken and no good. And like, in order for us to be well, we have to have like 50,000 types of medication. And we have to be like, and I'm not arguing against modern medicine, but I'm just saying it's like, we don't believe that we can heal anything because we don't believe that we are all of the elements that exist. Right? And so it continues to separate us from our nature. And in my case, in terms of being a midwife, it's like, then we don't believe we can birth. Like it's dangerous. It's dangerous because I don't believe that I am water and fire and wind and earth and all of these things, that I'm all the elements that are needed to make anything happen. Right? So I feel like that's what happens is we get so separated from that nature that then we're convinced that we're inherently flawed. We cannot be trusted to take care of ourselves. We cannot be trusted to give birth. We cannot be trusted to get well, right? So then we give over that power. And so this is really about when we know that we're connected to these things and we feel them inside of ourselves, then we begin to believe in that field of infinite possibility, right? Mm-hmm. And so with that intention, if you do live in the city, it doesn't matter, like, you get your tap water, right? You don't, if that's what you don't have that expensive filter, you don't have, like I said, it's good for us vibrationally to invest in those things. We invest in high vibration food. We invest in people who care about the earth. We invest in people who care about clean water. But when that is not available to us, that doesn't mean that we can't set the intention and raise the vibration of what is available to us, right? Yes. But because we've been convinced that we're flawed, that we're not those things, then we don't believe that we have that ability, right? So part of it too is kind of that reawakening and that remembering of our own original instructions, that we are that technology and that we can connect with it, that it was gifted to us so that we could be well if we want to take that opportunity, right? So, and when we have that fundamental baseline, then we can move into that place where it's like, now can I remember what my gift is? Can I remember why I came here? Can I remember what I wanted to give on behalf of all life? What is my talent? What is my gift, right? Because if we feel like we're disconnected and we feel like we're flawed and we feel like, then we may not even get to that point where now we can be the gift, right? Where now we can help others and be of service and be the calling that we came here for, right? To get our fulfillment as a human being for what we wanted to bring and for others to be fulfilled through our gift, right? So not only is it like the remembering of the original technologies, it's also like the remembering of our original instruction. Who are we as a being and what have we come to bring, right? Mm-hmm. And so all of these things, they're like these fundamental stairs, right? We like take the, but it's really challenging sometimes for us to know what our gift is when we don't feel like we have a connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. When we don't know if we can hear our ancestors, or we don't know if we can hear, because so many people, like, how often are you like, oh, well, spirit doesn't talk to me, or I don't have a connection. And we give that power away because we're looking for we're outsourcing, right? We're outsourcing the spiritual connection. Like, I must need this third party somehow. I must need this other shaman, or I must need and I'm not saying that there aren't people who are born to give that gift, to be interpreters, to be instruments of healing. And I would say that we're also, we're all the children of the Creator, and we all have that capacity. Mm-hmm. But we've been, what's happened in our society is like, now the burden of proof falls on us, right? Like, we'll prove that you have a connection, we'll prove that you're indigenous, or prove that this is your ancestry, or prove that you have a connection, And it's like, the fact that I'm here and I'm living and breathing, I've been ordained by the universe, I'm here. It's like, I'm alive. Like, what else do you want from me? I exist. Like, I exist. Like, that is my proof, but the burden has fallen on us. And so then we question ourselves, and we question our validity, and we question, all of these things. And yes, like, there is a spiritual maturity that can come over time, and that maturity of how we pray, and there's always a way for us to go further with ourselves. But that doesn't mean that if we're not that pinnacle of whatever, Hollywood version of the shaman is, that we can't be well and that we're not valid, So we don't, to me, it's like when people are like, well, prove it. I'm like, you prove it. You prove that I can't heal myself. Like, you prove that I don't have a connect. Like, that's your doubt and worry and fear, right? And so I'm here, and the universe put, the Creator breathed life into my body, and I'm here, and that's all I need. That's all the certificate,
right.
that I need, right? And so, but with that, moving into this concept of responsibility, is that we also have to assume responsibility for ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. So we assume responsibility also for the knowledge that we gain and the information we gain. Back in the day, we were held accountable by, our tribe, our clan, our nation of people held us accountable. Our family structure, our social community structure held us accountable, right? there were like master apprentice type relationships across the globe where like your gift was identified as a young person, and you had a mentor, you had someone who took responsibility for you, right? And who also held you accountable, right? And so this is also one of the messages that I want to share that Spirit has shared with me, is that, you know, there's this huge disconnect right now between knowledge and healing, because we have become so kind of addicted to knowing, right? We have the more access to information than we've ever had historically, with the internet, with books, with you name it. You want to know something, you can go find it out, right? And yet, societally, in many ways, we're more sick than we've ever been, right?
Right.
And so there isn't this integration of knowledge with healing. Okay, so knowing more, or reading all the right books, or going to all the right classes, or doing all of that, that is only one piece, and that's the part that's really heavily out of balance, right? And we learn things, and then we don't necessarily assume responsibility for them, right? We may share things, and then what happens is we actually can create more sickness, because we're not actually taking the responsibility to help people to utilize that information for their actual healing, right? This is like what I'm talking about when we might read all these things, but then we don't really know how to integrate them into our life in an actual practical way. Or we don't have a ceremonial life at all. Like, we don't have that part of our life where we say, yes, I've taken in this knowledge that I've acquired, but then what am I doing on that spiritual, energetic level to integrate it? Mm-hmm. Right? What am I actually doing so that that becomes part of who I am, instead of I have all this information, and yet I have not healed from this.
Right.
Yeah. And so we also have to take responsibility in that way.
Yeah. And so it sounds like there's a learning curve with that too. And it seems to be connected with another piece that I wanted to pull out of the discussion so far, which is this piece of making an offering as part of the prayer. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for me, what that looks like is I make offerings, say, to the garden all the time, in all the ways that I care for the garden, and I give very personal offerings too, of my menstrual blood, for example, and the water from the kitchen sink with all of the bits of the food that I'm eating, so that the plants have that enriched nutrients and water. I'm sharing my food with the plants, but I'm also sharing all this information about myself, and we have a cellular conversation. And that deepens the relationship with the plants and with all of the elements, and it's this dance. And so this idea of making an offering that has a piece of me in it, that has the oils from my fingertips, because I, broke that tobacco into little bits with my hands, and it has my breath in it, because I was breathing my prayers through chanting or speaking my prayers while processing that. It has bits of my elemental energetic makeup in it, because of how I am interacting with all of these, with what I'm giving. And so that feels really important in if we are not able to give an offering of like that, a quality offering of something of who we are, then whatever learning we receive or medicine we receive, we can't receive it either. Like, it feels like that gift opens up the space inside of us to receive. This is my sense of it right now. The feeling that I'm getting is that gift creates an opening. When I give of myself, it's like empties a little space in me to then be able to receive and integrate whatever I'm learning or receiving from that plant or from that person or that workshop. And so, and nowadays when people say pay money for a workshop or for a retreat or something like that, it doesn't have the same quality anymore. I mean, it depends. You know, you can pay money for a workshop and receive a lot and integrate a lot. But I know that there's a lot of people, because I work with them all the time, that come on these retreats, and that's the place where they feel it, is at the retreat. And then they go home and they don't take it home with them. It's not integrated into their day-to-day life as much as they would like. And so there's that disconnect. Even though they paid money, they gave their gift of money for the retreat, there needs to be something that's more substantial in that exchange to help us to take responsibility and really receive it. Like if I'm really giving of myself, then I'm going to make sure I really receive it, somehow.
Yeah. And I mean, what I would add to that is that the law of the universe is that everything's in relationship, right? Everything's in relationship with each other, and that there's this universal principle of reciprocity, right? Mm-hmm. And so what it looks like now, I mean, the thing is that I hear where you're coming from, and I would agree that, sometimes in some monetary situations, it doesn't necessarily hold the same vibration. But I feel that the reason that is because we have not been taught or raised that can also have a vibration to it, right? Like money is like this thing that's just, it can be personal for you when you're really broke. It can feel really personal, but also, like, it's not something that is we haven't really agreed on that this is like something that we can also raise the vibration around, right? That there can be a raising of the vibration of the exchange of whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because, recently I did a home birth for someone who is a dear friend of mine, and she wanted to make sure to pay me. And I know what that meant for her. I know what it meant for her to raise that money, that she was insisting to pay me, right? I understood that this was something, like, she worked hard. She is a practitioner, and she worked really hard caring for people to be able to reciprocate with me in the way that she wanted to reciprocate with me, right? So to me, that exchange was so high vibration, because it really came from that place of like, no, I really want to give you this in this way, and I was super intentional about it, right?
Right.
But also, it's like, that's like how we can reciprocate with each other on one level, right? But how we reciprocate, or how we take responsibility with our Holy Mother Earth, with the sacred living water, with all of those elements, is different, right? Because, if we took a bunch of money and we buried it in the ground, our Holy Mother Earth would be like, that's cool, like, you totally worked for that and you gave it to me, but it's not really the same. Like, she doesn't need money, right? So it's kind of like, what do you give the person who has everything, right? Because all of the divine technologies, all of the life on our Holy Mother Earth, they're showing us something, right? They can live without those things, right? So it's like, what do you give, right? You give the gift of the heart, the gift of the self, right? So in your case, that's what this, you're like, I offered this like very present, intentional experience where I communed with this tobacco, and I made my physical effort. And that came from your heart, right? And so what have our ancestral peoples always done? The way that they reciprocated was through prayer, right? Through effort, right? Like working the earth is a way of communing and caring for her, right? Like, I'm putting seeds in, and then you're feeding me, and I'm watering you, and I'm remembering you, and I'm thanking you. And this is being in this reciprocal relationship, right? But they also offered songs, and they also offered dances. Like, who in the world doesn't dance? Like, all original peoples danced and sang and did this to honor all of the creation, right? All life, to honor all the gifts from our Holy Mother, from our Father, Son, from all that. So we also have our talent, right? Our art and things that we can offer back, to be in reciprocity. And yes, to take responsibility for what we're receiving, and also to take responsibility for what we're learning, right? And part of that is also saying, like, I am going to be very intentional when I receive this information, to like pray about it and to be mindful of when I share that and who I'm sharing that with and why I'm sharing it and what is my intention. Because just to use myself as an example, like sometimes you are so wanting to learn something that when you learn it, you're so proud of yourself. And then there's a little bit of ego that gets developed around that, right? Yeah. And that's normal. Like, we're gonna go through these cycles. I'm a human being, but it's like, then I'm like, I share what I want, and I withhold when I want, and I decide who gets to know, and all these things, and that's not taking responsibility, right? That's something else, right? And I've done that in my life. I mean, honestly, and I know there are people who have too. I don't judge them. It's just like we go through those cycles of our development. And really, taking responsibility is being like, I'm not the thing that I'm the tool for, right? Like, I am a vehicle or a tool for healing, but I don't take that onto myself to say, I heal you. I am the all-knowing, all-masterful power that I heal you, right? It's that I take responsibility and say, I chose this lifetime. I have these gifts. I remember what these gifts are. I want to bestow them. I want to share them. And I'm willing to take responsibility for how I share them. And I'm also willing to be in reciprocity with what I receive them from. Right?
Right. Beautiful. Yeah, it just feels like what you're sharing about honors that relationship, a healthy relationship with spirit, with these sources that we rely on for our very life. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful model too for our relationships with other human beings and with animals and with living beings, right? What is that? Humans and animals, insects.
With all our relations, right?
All our relations,
right? Mitakuye o yasin, right? All of our relations.
Right. And so taking responsibility for how we behave in relation, and every tradition seems to have this golden rule of treating others how we would like to be treated. And it feels like in our development of these relations with these elements, greeting the sun in the morning how I would want to be greeted, right? And taking responsibility for that, and greeting the other elements and treating them as I would want to be treated, just as I do with other human beings or animals, and returning to this relationship of partnership and harmonious equality and ecology of everything having an important and respected place in the scheme of things. And that feels like taking responsibility. And especially since we're still recovering from this human illness of thinking that domination is a viable way of relating to things, instead of partnership. And so it's really our responsibility to look closely and carefully at how that domination, how any of us as individuals has internalized that illness or is still suffering from that illness of domination, whether we are allowing ourselves to be dominated by others or having behaviors that demonstrate a belief in that domination in some way. And so it's so profoundly healing to just start by having a partnership relationship with the elements of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that it feels like that just translates into that partnership relationship with all beings and heals the core of what ails any of us, which is this domination illness, essentially.
I would say, I mean, I know it sounds like an oversimplification, but you know, we can definitely take the journey in whatever way we feel called to take the journey, because we're going to get, you know, there's many ways to get to the same place, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel that for me personally, it's like having that foundational connection. It's like I don't have to feel this burden of like knowing everything that my ancestors knew, or like recovering. Like sometimes that can feel like a burden. Like I really want to be connected, and now to be connected, I have like such an education that I need to embark on, and it can feel so big and so overwhelming. And it's like, and that's where we always come back to this space of like, you can heal with a glass of water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an oversimplification, but it's like really like they're and you know, everybody has their own journey. So I'm not saying that, you know, that I know that that's going to happen for one person or the other, but what I mean is that, you know, we don't have to feel this burden to like know it all and have it all and be all of these things, and like sometimes even inflate ourselves to be something that we don't, that isn't for us. Mm-hmm. Right? But that if we have a relationship with what is the most fundamental, we're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And really, we don't need to, although we could take on the responsibility, and it's beautiful when we can come from a place of like, I'm actively healing myself, and now I can come outside and I can make a contribution. But one of the greatest things we can do is actually just work on ourselves. Like the way that that works, and the way that we're all connected, and the way that our ancestors understood things, was that when you heal yourself, you heal the 7 generations past and the 7 generations forward. Because again, you know, this whole quantum physics thing, like time is like this whole other thing. Right. But it is possible to heal along a continuum of time in the present now, right? So that those are some deeper, more complex things, and I'm trying to stay away from complexity, but the reality is that, you know, we really can do well by ourselves to focus on that healing for ourselves and focus on that connection. And, you know, and once in a while invite someone over to like pray with the water with you, and invite someone over. Like that's fine. Like that's plenty. You know, we don't have to be the healer of everybody and the healer of all things to feel like we're getting somewhere and that we've accomplished something. You know, it's like, be that, you know, be that best version of yourself, and everything else is going to align itself, right? Because it's about vibration. So I think like sometimes we have that burden, right? Like, no, I gotta learn. Yeah. You know, sometimes people call me and I feel like, you know, I've been on this walk for a long time of remembering and rediscovering. And sometimes people will call me and I feel that, like, as an Indigenous person, they're like, can you do this or that? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know how to do that. You know, and then it creates this whole slew of issues because I'm like, well, but should I know how to do it? And people are calling on me to do it. And then this whole like burden, instead of me just being like, yeah, I'm not there, man. Like, this is what I got right here, and you're welcome to that. And maybe someday, but maybe that's not my talent. Maybe that's not my gift. Maybe that's someone else's gift, and that's okay. I don't have to define my identity by those things, right? I can be okay with where I am in the world right now. Right. And know that I'm already a gift now. And so are all of you. Right. So just as much as possible working to remembering, what does it mean to be genuinely authentic? Right. What is it? You know, can I remember who I am authentically?
Mm-hmm. Just holding that, this feels like a prayer moment right there. Just the essence of, it's okay for us, it's just right for us actually to be exactly who we are. It's like we're each a drop of water or a molecule of water with our own unique gift that then comes together in the whole ecology of all of us.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone listening is actually like in any doubt at all that they're a gift, I just want to say, like, you're here. you're working at it, you're like doing your best, and like there's definitely a gift in you and in everyone, and we need that gift. And part of me now being open to sharing, where before I used to just be much more reserved and kind of quiet about things, but part of that is because I'm like, we need everybody's gift. Like we need that. Like we need, you know, for people to trust themselves and to feel and to know, you know, as much as possible who they are authentically, because that unique authentic gift is like so needed, right? And so if we can encourage one another to fully embody those gifts, like, you know, we're gonna live in a totally different world, right? So I don't need to be jealous of your gift. I don't need to be afraid of your gift or talent. I don't need to be like, why don't I have that gift or whatever, or try to learn and acquire all the knowledge for a gift that doesn't belong to me in a way, right? Like I could do that, but then I'm negating completely this other set of things, talents that I was actually born to give, right? And that will also be in reciprocity with me and give me fulfillment, right? That I can share and give to others and that will fulfill me. So I just, you know, I just want people to know, like I pray all the time for all of us to feel good about who we are and to remember who we are, and that we have something to share and we have a gift, each and every one of us. We're not flawed or like broken beyond repair. We're not, you know what I mean? We're just a little bit of an amnesiac, you know what I mean? So if we can kind of remember who we are, then we have the opportunity to find joy in being a gift to others and to receive the gifts of others, right? Yeah. So we don't have to bear the burden of being all of it for ourselves, you know?
What a relief.
Yeah, right?
Right. Oh, Monica, well, thank you so much for sharing all of this insight and wisdom and encouragement and prayer for everyone. And you have some ways that people can get in touch with you, and particularly I would like for you to share a little bit about your Midwives for Black Lives project, which we'll share more about later, but I just wanted you to give a little hint about that, because we're going to have the links for how to contact you if anyone wants to learn more about your work above. So could you share a little bit about that and other ways people can get in touch with you?
Yes, great. So I, at the time of being a midwifery student, started a midwifery student fund called Midwives for Black Lives. And it is a fund specifically designed to help student midwives, Black student midwives, to complete their midwifery education. I have given one scholarship so far, which has been really exciting, and I want to be able to build that up and really start bringing in more participation and sharing more with people about the opportunity that we have to invest in Black midwives. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to talking to you about it more, Sama, in one of your other recordings. And I just really also want to say thank you to everyone for your gift of your attention, for your patience in sitting and listening to what we have to offer today. And I thank you for allowing me to be the gift that I am. And I look forward to receiving all the gifts that you all are too. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Monica. And so you can, if you're interested in learning more about this fund, you can click on the links above about Midwives for Black Lives, as well as you'll have website links and all of that to reach out to Monica. So thank you once again, and holding all of these prayers in the sacred container of our summit here, and sharing it all with you, that we may all discover, remember, and give the gift that we are to the world. All right. Thank you so much. That's all for now.